welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk this week. I'm joined with the lovely Ginette, and my name is Elyse. We're missing Lisa this week. I feel like we've been having a hard time in the last month. It's June. Let's blame June energy. We can't all be here at once, it seems. Maybe next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were going to talk today. We were just chit-chatting a little bit about there's a lot happening in the world. Once again, I feel like I say that almost every time I intro us on Spirit Coffee
Mhm.
Talk. There's a lot going on. And last week, you and Lisa talked a lot about just some of the like heavy energy and how it's been a little bit tough. And then, here we are today, Friday, June 24th, and there's been a really surprising and saddening decision that came out in the United States about Roe versus Wade. And it's been a lot. It's a lot, I feel like, to handle as a human self. How have you been feeling?
Yeah, it has been a lot. I find I've had to really continually, consciously kind of step back from getting like right in the muck of everything because it's very easy to get in the muck of everything. And whether that be through like triggers, the busyness of life right now for many people, um, but then the amount of things happening. And so I mean, I think after I recognized the darkness that was kind of around and getting pesky leading up to the solstice,
Mhm.
and again, like we talked about, like it was coming in to try and keep people low, right? And then the solstice brought this huge burst of energy, this like bright, heightened energy, which was
It was
lovely.
really beautiful and like calm and grounding. Like the solstice day unconsciously was like one of the best days I've had in months,
Mhm.
actually. Like I even said to
Wow.
John, I'm like, wow, I just feel so like peaceful and happy today. And like we had such a nice day. And then it's like we had a little nice bubble of sunshine for that day.
Yeah, it's true. And then it's kind of like the day after, we kind of hit the ground running in this new sort of timeline or time structure or like direction. And for some people, that next day of hitting the ground running, suddenly they felt like they were diverted on a slightly different path. I know you felt that. And I think we can even say with like Roe versus Wade, it's shocking that that happened. It's like, what? Like when I heard that this morning, I literally did a double take. I was like, really? I just thought we were so much farther along. Now, when I say that, that's in 3D. But when I tune into the higher energies of spirit, we are farther along, higher up, and that's coming down, but in 3D is still quite dense,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
there's this like, since the solstice, I find there's this adjusting and this kind of getting to know this new pace of this new time structure that we're in right now. So it's kind of how
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I'm really, as I've talked about on here before, I really am a big proponent and I'm learning it in my own life and I work with folks on this and I think it's an ongoing process for all of us always, just being human beings. But for me, I'm really like trying to become aware, and I know you guys talked a little bit about this last week too, like becoming aware of like when something's really triggering to me, when I'm finding I'm really dropping into my emotions. And I don't even want to say like anger because oftentimes we think that that's bad, but like I was angry this morning reading those headlines. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what? I've been angry about things happening in my life that feel really unfair or like I was following intuitions and then everything kind of got turned on its head. And now I'm like, what the heck? What was that all for? And so I've been experiencing a lot of frustration. And sometimes I'm like, gosh, and I kind of can notice myself getting down on myself for it. Like, oh, you should be this or you should be that. And, I think that in reality, it's really normal to look at an article like that or see that headline come out and be like, what in the hell is happening? How could somebody think that that's okay? How could we think? And, we could put all these different labels on what you think about this outcome. Um, but either way, I think whatever you're feeling about it is totally okay. And that is part of, like, when you were saying, like, there's real density in the 3D. I think that that's part of being part of the 45D high, I don't like the word higher, um, broader and expanded consciousness, let's say expanded consciousness levels, or spaces that we're in. I think part of that is allowing the fact that like I'm mad and I'm judging this right now. Like we were talking a little bit about that earlier. Like there's times where I feel really judgmental towards people that hold a very different opinion than me on these types of world issues. And while I think that's totally fair and normal, and something that just happens as part of our human experience, especially when we're super passionate about something, I think that the expanded consciousness versions of us can say, okay, I see that I'm really angry about this. I see that I'm judging it a lot. I see that it's triggering something in me. Can I be with that for a little bit? Can I sit with it? Can I process it? And I think sometimes when we say process, people are like, what the hell does that even mean? But like sitting with it, journal about it, let your mind think about it, feel what's happening in your body, be angry, cry, sink into that little hole for, however long you need and be fully present with it. And then as it starts to lift, because likely it will, the more present you can be with it, then the more you can say, like, okay, the people who are making these decisions, are there things happening that I don't know about? Are there ways that I can have a higher level perspective, or a more consciously evolved perspective? Can I step back and say, you know what, I don't like the way this is going, but me as a conscious human, I'm going to decide to make change. I'm going to call my representatives. I'm going to take action if I'm called to do that. Or I'm going to hold space for people that are really in their feelings about it. Like whatever that is for you. I know you've talked about like, how do you feel called to act, or like activism in the world? It's going to be different for all of us. Whatever that is for you, it's like after the emotions, after holding space for it, can you then drop into the letting the judgment go, having that broader conscious perspective, taking action, holding space for others, all of that good stuff that like we want to get towards. I think you have to go through the anger first, especially when it's like things that are going to impact or have impacted hundreds, thousands, millions of people, right? Insert world issue in the blank. It can be Roe versus Wade, or it can be the 75 other million things that are happening in the world right now. So it's hard, but the only way through it is through it, right? Like otherwise we're just holding on to the anger, and is that going to make it any better? Probably not.
Mm-hmm. I really like your comment of the only way through it is through it. And I think that's something that if we at least hang on to that when we really feel like we're struggling, or really angry, it's kind of like running from it at this point is not going to help. Mm-hmm. Taking a pause to catch your breath, absolutely. But figuring out how you feel about it, I think, like you're saying, is really important, because then you can choose where you're going to go, what you're going to do, how you're going to be because of it. Mm-hmm. Right? So, I mean, I just think there's a lot of reflecting time happening right now too. Like this summer, I think we have a lot of time to observe and reflect, and then put that into action come fall time, in a general sense. The other thing that I keep being shown though over and over, and this came up in cosmic consciousness, in my cosmic consciousness circle, was the split between dimensional consciousness in the world. Like a lot of people have talked about like two worlds or parallel worlds, or it's going to transfer from one planet in 3D to another in 5D. And I keep being shown it rather than one planet and another planet. It's like a different dimension, a different parallel life timeline, and we have many. And we will see more and more separation of a more strictly 3D and a more strictly 5D. How fast that happens, I don't know. I'm not privy to that information right now. But I see it happening, of real separation between levels of dimensional consciousness. And we're going to see that because in other forms, we could look at different things going on the planet that are way up there. It's like, wow, look at that forward movement, that innovation, that compassion, that, this and that, and progress being made at the same time as these really dense, ridiculous choices being made too, which is just creating that greater divide of 3D and 5D. And so that's why I think there's something in here about really, the more we question why we're feeling what we're feeling and acknowledging it, the more we have the opportunity to stay in the mix of that higher consciousness versus caught in the whirl of the 3D consciousness. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that like it's so easy. I think a lot of people, and I know we've talked about this before, like people are getting tired. It's been a lot for a long time. And in like all different facets of life now too, right? Like it's not just that we're caught in, stuck inside our homes, but there's climate stuff and there's shortages of things. Like we couldn't buy dog food the other day because there was no bags for the dog food. There's a shortage of dog food bags. Like it's these things that are challenging aspects of our day-to-day life that I think we never thought we would have to worry about. And maybe that was, cute human naiveness. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, I think it's really confronting in a lot of ways. And so I think a lot of the things, I know for me anyways, there's a real level underneath a lot of the stuff that I'm feeling. There's a real fear of like, what is this going to look like? Like, how is this, what's our out here? What's the path or the game plan to get us onto this trajectory that I think a lot of us feel the potential of. And so for me, it's felt really conflicting. And I've spoken to some of my clients about this, that in some ways, and I've chatted with you about this too, that like I've had to have some conversations with Spirit to be like, listen, I'm not super trusting right now. And it doesn't mean that I'm completely throwing everything that I know out the window. And it doesn't mean that I completely, disregard the fact that I do feel like there's so much good coming, and individually and collectively, and in all of the ways. And I think there's so much potential for change that we don't even know about, right? Like that, again, insert world issue. There's a lot of ways that things can ebb and flow and evolve and change that we probably haven't even thought of yet. And so there is, even from that perspective, a lot of hope. And it would be normal if you questioned that. I would be a little bit concerned if people didn't ever question that, because I think that means we're so disconnected from the things happening that we're not present here either. And I think, like we've talked about so much, it's always this balance of like human and spirit and just kind of like holding both. And I was having a conversation with a client recently, and we were talking about how, she felt kind of untrusting of Spirit, but also a little bit angry, but then felt some guilt around like feeling that way about like the frustration that she was feeling with her guides and the world and everything that's happening. And I said, we are like, we're Spirit too. We got a meat suit on us. That's the only difference, right? It's not, they're not better. We're not worse. We have all of the same consciousness and evolution and goodness in us as, Spirit does, that we kind of can sometimes put on a pedestal, forgetting that like we have access to that wisdom for ourselves as well. And when we make ourselves separate of that, we're just kind of further solidifying the shit show that's happening, right? Like the more we think we're separate of Spirit, the universe, other people, these situations, the people that we disagree with and we feel like we're wholeheartedly opposite of and not the same as, we eventually realize like, no, it's all so tied in. And I think that's oftentimes where we hear like, when you judge somebody else, you judge yourself. And that can feel bypassing, because it's like, well, right, but I'm pissed and I want to judge them because this decision that we saw, I'm really upset about it. And like, I want to be judgmental. And that's fair. And then, like we were saying earlier, then you have awareness for that, move through it in whatever way is best for you, and then, forward you go. So it's just this like complete cycle that I think we keep finding ourselves in like all aspects of life, that is confronting and a lot. And just it's a lot to hold. Like the more I'm saying it, I'm like, shit.
Yeah. My God.
I'm helping.
I was chatting with my guides this morning, and I was kind of like, what is going on? Like, why would this pass? Like, why would this come through? How does that make sense? And I was kind of, walking that line of it turning into like real frustration, and then me holding my ground in calm and peace, still having reactions and stuff. But like, when you like tip the scale and you have to like bring yourself back, right? So I was kind of walking that line, talking with them, and I'm like, I don't understand this. And they said, after I shared all my thoughts, they said, Ginette, why did you come here in this lifetime? They're like, you've seen your blueprint. You've been to the other side. Why did you come here? I'm like, well, obviously to help, make a difference. And they're like, did you expect to come and make a difference and share what you know, connect people, all these things that we're doing in a time where it was easy?
Yes.
It was like, fair point. They're like, it wouldn't be needed in a time that is easy. All of us that are here right now doing these things have chosen to be here during a time that would have turmoil and great change. All of us were like put me in, coach. I'm totally willing to go. And they're like, it's going to be hard. And we're like, we got it. We totally got it.
They didn't sneak that into the terms and agreements that nobody reads.
Yeah, right? The really
Cell phone
serious
contact.
Jack.
You're like, yeah, sure, whatever, fine, I'm good. That's good.
Yeah. But what it did though for me was it put it in perspective of in the bigger ocean of our lifetimes and experiences, this is but one drop. Like this lifetime that we are living right now is a drop. And sometimes I find for myself, I can take the pressure off of this drop when I back up and realize, okay, like, yeah, I am here right now to do a thing. Is it best for me to get caught up in the whirl of this? Am I needed to be rah rah down there doing my thing? No, that doesn't feel aligned for me. Where am I best needed? What did I come here for? Yada yada. And so I think sometimes that's really helpful for me to remember, like, I did come here not for a carnival ride of, pixies and lollipops, but like I came here for the uphill grind,
Mm-hmm.
right? To do a thing as we all did, as we're all trying to do. And so sometimes I find, for me anyways, that's kind of that olive branch where I'm like, oh yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can reset this kind of thing. Doesn't mean I'm over it, but it's that perspective, I think, sometimes. Um, and they're funny when they bring it in because they're very loving and caring, but it's also that kind of like, yeah, exactly. It's the head tilt, like,
Yeah.
hmm? So much is said in just the energy. It's like, oh yeah, right, thanks. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I think we've talked to on this platform, and I know you've talked about it on your podcast. I think in regards to like sometimes we also have to remind spirit of what it's like. Like when I was saying, talking to my client about this, and I was saying like we're the same except we just have a meat suit, and I said if anything, like, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's like we're carrying the heavier burden, right? Like we've got the heavy meat suit and all of the heaviness of the 3D world, and we're kind of like moving through, and we came in having this remembering of all these things, and then as we age and grow older in society, it kind of like trains us out of it and teaches us that like, oh, the things in it's in you, playing tricks on you in your mind, and oh, your eyes play tricks on you, and oh, all these things, whatever. And then we can choose to either like stay in that lane, or we can choose to kind of consciously evolve and grow. And like oftentimes spirit will kind of get put on this pedestal of like they know everything, and it's like no, they're just at a different perspective.
yeah.
It's not that they know any better than us or that they're any smarter, more evolved. It's just that like we're down here on the earth with our heavy 3D meat suits, trying to allow our consciousness to kind of reconnect to all of the things that we forgot. And they're up there and they've got a bird's eye view. They're in the the what are those, like the high seats of the stadium, or like the box seats of the hockey game, where like they can see the whole picture that we just don't have the perspective of. So it doesn't mean that anything that they say is better, or it's just a different perspective, right? And I think sometimes the languaging that we can hear in the spiritual world is like, even sometimes I hesitate when I say like higher self. I always clarify like it's not higher because it's better. It's high. I see it as like literally above our bodies, like as a separate or a different perspective sort of thing. It's higher up from
Mm-hmm.
our vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about better or worse. It's just about remembering the perspectives. And when you're in the slog of things, which we are right now, you can lose that perspective. And because we just are stressed and there's a lot happening, and
Yeah.
our little human brains can only hold so much at once.
It's true. It's true. And that brings up one extra little point here is remembering that there isn't an easy button on ascension, that ascension has to happen in waves. It can't happen just like, whoop, there you go, ascended. It has to happen in waves because our brains need time to adjust and time to expand, to know where to put the information, the understandings, and so on. So there is just no easy button. It is a process of growth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah.
And I'll just, I'll plug. It's been interesting. So one of my clients that we're actually going to have come on here, she wrote this incredible book about very much paralleling a lot of the things happening in the world right now, specifically with Roe versus Wade, and about female and feminine rights and body choice and all of those good things. And um, through that process of like writing her novel and getting it out into the world, she's also worked through major ascension. And she's going to come and talk about that because Spirit was the one that was pushing her. Her guides, some deceased loved ones that she had never met before. That is how she got on this road. And I've been working with her for a while, and now we're at this point where it's like, look at what's happening in the world alongside of this book that, like, the book is a big thing for her soul's journey and her spirit and her, you know, why she's here. And it's been hard. Like, it's not been an easy process for her, and we've talked so much about that. So she's going to come and talk all about that and about the book and
Mhm.
all that good stuff, and how walking the line, like exactly that, walking the line of like our spirit's evolution and connecting in. So often I know I thought this, like, oh, I'm going to talk to spirits and I'm going to do all this stuff, and then I'm like, woof, this isn't, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like, through, we grow via challenges. Like, how do you build muscle? You know, as a past personal trainer and kinesiologist, you know, you break down the muscle, you create tears in it, you
Yeah.
hurt it, in order for it to grow and open up and change. So we have to have that challenge
Yeah.
to open up and grow more. It's not going to just be, um, both collectively and personally. It's not just going to be like, oh, things are great, but we're going to make it better.
Yeah.
It's usually things are terrible, so we're going to fix them and heal them and make them better.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that was lovely. And hopefully that helps some of you guys out there that are pondering these things and questioning the why, um, in relation to anything really, too, anything in the ascension process right now. So just keep going, keep moving forward, even if it's little by little. Sometimes it's going to be big leaps, sometimes it's not. And I think as we just keep going and remembering that higher perspective when we have nothing else left to,
Mm-hmm.
no other way to see it, go higher up.
Yeah. And let us know what ways you connect in with that higher perspective. Because I think it can come in so many different ways. Sometimes quiet for me. Sometimes I need to like have a meltdown. Sometimes I need to journal about it. Sometimes I need to move my body. Like, it can look a million different ways. So if there's anything interesting that you do, please share it with us in the comments or on Facebook or whatever, because I think the more that we can all learn from each other of like, how can I move this? Because I feel really angry right now. What do I do with it? Or I feel this or that. The healthier we'll become as humans, and the more we can support our spirits and evolving and growing, and in turn everybody else, right? Because it's we're not singular beings. We are all very interconnected.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Please do subscribe and share if you're enjoying this content, and also check out Avalon Spirit for more. And we will see you guys all next week.